Hey, we are live in Medicareville this Friday afternoon. It is August 26th, 2022. And I know we're all counting down to AEP, OEP, and losing our minds. Look at this. I had pink hair at the last conference, and now it's already gray again. And I blame it on AEP 100%. Today we are here with the one and only Mr. Christian Brindle, and he is dropping something on us called Superstar, right? Superstar?
That's right.
And I'm not even sure exactly what all that entails, so we're going to figure it out. As always, drop your comments in and we will get to them. Bobby Braceno says, "Howdy, Christian." And somebody else says, "Hey, yo, Adrian."
Yo.
So we always like to have a good time on here. So you are dropping a new book, right? Called Superstar?
I am.
Oh,
So
Tony's here too. Woohoo.
what's up, Tony? Mr. Merwin? Yes.
And Sandra's in the house.
Legendary Sandra Gephardt.
Awesome. It looks like Friday afternoon. People are tired of whatever they're doing. They're going to tune in to see what Superstar is all about.
We'll give them a nice break, right, from their regular day-to-day, right? Yes. So first off, I wanted to say, Rebecca, thank you for having me on today and, spending some time with me. And I love you and everything that you do. And so it's an honor to spend some time with you today. So Superstar is a book that I have coming out. It was actually supposed to be dropped by today, but we had little stuff we had to do to fix some issues with, some of the formatting and covers and things like that. So it should be up on Amazon by tomorrow. That's the plan. So Superstar is a book that was very personal to me. So I wanted to get your take on something, Rebecca, in this conversation. So I feel like I know I've felt this way a lot when I'm working with agents because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But I feel like there's a lot of people that have a fear of telling agents exactly what they need to know to be a top producer. And what I mean by that is like, you got to work your ass off. You got to work your butt off. You got to put in the time. It's not something that happens easily. There's a reason why our success rate is so small in insurance compared to the number of people that are successful, right? And so I wanted to put a book out there that was very, very raw, very, very honest. And sometimes I found myself in a situation where I've almost felt nervous telling someone what I really think because I don't want to like hurt their feelings or offend them, even if I feel like it's something they need to hear, whether I'm doing consulting, whether it's an agent that works with us, whatever the case might be. So I wanted to put a book out there that was just, forget all that. I'm going to be honest, transparent about what I feel somebody needs to hear about what it takes to just be not just a top producer, but a freaking megastar like Rebecca is. And I think to be as successful as Rebecca Davis is, or to be as successful as even, my agency has been, it's not easy. It's a tremendous amount of work. And so I wanted to put all that into a book where it was just a brainchild of everything that needs to go into, from a mindset perspective to an activities perspective to a strategy perspective, what it takes to really be a megastar in insurance. So that's
I'm actually excited to read it now because I mean, you kind of briefly told me what it was about, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. But now it's like more kind of like a tell-all. It sounds like now I'm intrigued, like super intrigued. And you're right, it's hard sometimes. And I think the longer you get in the business, the longer you're in the business, because I know I'm always evolving, right? Just like you are. You learn how to talk to people. It's more of like a tough love situation because you're absolutely not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but you want them to succeed. And a lot of times the whole reason they're not succeeding because they're getting in their own way. Whether they're overthinking it, whether they're not putting in the activity, whether it's fear. There are so many reasons why, but ultimately it's here, right? For whatever that reason is. And it's hard sometimes to try to hold up a mirror to somebody, because it comes across, you're rude, you're bitchy, you're judgmental, you don't understand, you're not empathetic. And that's not the case at all. We can maybe just see the forest through the trees a little bit, because maybe we've already been down that road and we know what it took to get ourselves out of it. Or maybe we've seen another agent go through it, and we don't want, them to fall as hard as they did before they figured it out. It is so hard. And I think this is a very touchy area, especially if you're a newer team leader.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's even harder. I mean, unless you're just inherently an asshole, and then you're not going to have much of a team anyways.
Which there's definitely some of those out there.
There is some like that. And, sometimes, that might be good too, because they're getting the hard, honest truth. And they're, but ultimately maybe some of those people that need more molding, they're going to jump out of the business before they ever get started, when they just really needed somebody to lift them up and not tear them down.
Yeah.
And I've actually been working with a newer business coach. And it's just a business coach. He's not an insurance coach. He's just business. I watch him because he's brutal. He will rip you apart in front of a Zoom with 500 other people on there. And ultimately, he's trying to get you to open your eyes. And I've noticed by watching this, and I've been watching it now for about 4 or 5 months, watching him. And they either get it, and they rise above to the challenge, or they don't get it, or they realize this isn't for them, and then they, change their path or whatever the case may be. And by watching him and watching the different reactions to people, because I've seen people literally be bawling in front of him, and it wasn't me this time. And at the end of the conversation, they're so thankful because he was willing to do that to them. And then ultimately, because they're coachable, he now digs in and gives them some really good ideas on what to do next. So it's about that being coachable, right? And I think seeing that firsthand has allowed me mentally maybe some permission to be a little more tough loving. I can never be as brutal as he is. This is not my nature, but maybe be a little more matter of fact, I guess. And have a little tougher conversation. I think especially as we're bringing on brand new agents that I've never worked with, I don't have a relationship with, I can be kind of very honest in that initial onboarding talk, like this is what it's going to take. So I love the fact that you're putting a book out about this. I can't wait, because I think, hearing it from like behind the curtain, and you're not telling it to anybody in particular, you're just telling it to what it takes, I think is fantastic. So how long did it take you to write this book?
So I'm notorious for writing quick books. So and I think my record is 3 weeks and I had a book written. This one took me a little bit longer. It took about, I want to say maybe about 3 months from the time I started it to the time I got done with it. I put definitely, and for some people they're like 3 months, that's so fast. I remember when I first started writing books, I started going to these meetings locally here in Salt Lake, to where they're like self-published author meetings, right? Where like all these authors get together, and there are people that they're like, they write these novels, these big like nonfiction books and everything, which is totally different from the type of book I'm writing, and probably the type of book that you'd write. We're writing business books, we're writing like, for me, usually my books are 100 pages, 150 pages, something like that. They're writing like 600-700 page books. And they're like, it took me 2 years to write my book, doing different drafts and this and that and this and that. So I'm just like, I'm just trying to get the book out there, right? And like, I don't feel like I need to spend years writing a book. Like I remember Grant Cardone always would say, like, my books aren't the best written, but they're best sellers. They're not winning awards for best written. And so I feel like, it took me
faster, I think, if you're not like making something up. Like, I have a new character. Oh wait, I put him in the book, but I never introduced him like 3 chapters ago. All of a sudden now he's just so-and-so's boyfriend. How did that happen? You gotta go back and put that chapter in, right? You're not writing a book like that. You're writing a book of a decade of experience, or however long it's been now. And you're just pulling from memory and recollect and challenges. So I would think probably the outline probably took you maybe longer than the actual sitting down and typing it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The outline was probably the most challenging part, just to figure out like topics, right? And kind of what we wanted to discuss in the book. Um, so Rebecca, if I may, I wanted to talk about a couple of things that are in the book that I think you'll love to hear, that, and it might be a little teaser for everybody that's watching. So one thing that we touch on, and this is just kind of an example, couple of things, right? So, and these are a lot of things that I see in the industry, right? Number one, who your upline is does not determine if you're successful or not. You might be more successful with one upline opposed to another. You might get a little bit more support, but whether you're successful or not, you could have the best upline in the world or the worst upline in the world. Like, you put Rebecca Davis with anybody out there and she's going to be successful. It doesn't matter who it is. Superstar producers is is a routine in the book. That's how I would refer to it. Is like, you want to be a superstar. This is how superstars act. This is how they conduct themselves. This is how they carry themselves. Your upline, I feel like there's a big culture that's placed on the industry, right? And I see it in Facebook groups all the time. I'm sure you do too, that like almost your upline's going to make or break you. And that should never be the case, right? Like, you should be able to be with anybody, and your success is because what you bring to the table is so special, and your ability to really just put up numbers and crank out production is there, right? Your upline isn't the one responsible for that. I feel like there's such a feeling that people have that, like, if I'm not with the right upline, I'm going to fail. I'm going to crash and burn. That you should never crash and burn. If you want to be a superstar, you want to be a top producer, doesn't matter who you're contracted with. You should never crash and burn. Now, there are instances where, like, maybe someone contracted you as an LOA. They didn't tell you were going to be an LOA. Like, there's like exceptions to like that.
Of
But
course.
for the most part, who your FMO is, who your upline is, should not determine if you're successful or not. They can help you. They can give you resources that might help you to be even more successful. So that's something that we talk about in the book. It's like, stop making your upline a god. Stop making your upline the end all be all. You're putting too much importance on the upline.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important.
Well, and the opposite is like, the upline's not the devil either, right?
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, like, get the upline off the pedestal. They're your partner, and I think you got, and I think even as a downline agent looking up to an upline, and an upline agent even bringing on a new downline, it truly is a partnership, and you got to look at that from both sides of it. And I think if you go into it, and if both sides of you are looking at it as a partnership, you're absolutely right. Then the superstar agent lies within you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, of course, there are some horrendous uplines out there, absolutely.
Yes.
But there's more, we'll just say mediocrity uplines out there than anything, like just run of the mill, right? And it doesn't matter if you're with any one of those. You've got the general contracting level, you're an independent. It really is a matter on you. It's you. Because anybody can be successful. Yes. Can a better upline get you there faster? Of course. Absolutely. Yeah. But it doesn't mean if you're going to win or fail.
Yes.
It absolutely does not. That is 100% solely on you. I mean, I started at State Farm. I was the top agent there. My kid was on Medicaid. I left State Farm and built something. And I think this is the other thing people need to realize too. So I, in a way, was an overnight success compared to where I was at right away. But yet I had 5 years of training before I went independent. So I don't even, I believe in the LOA thing. I do.
Yeah.
Do I think it needs to be a little revamped? Of course. And I like to think I've done that in my own office, because I have some, where it's a better structure. It's a better, and yes, they know the difference, right? Because we have that conversation when they first come on board, because I can put you direct, an independent, or I can make you an LA. Which do you prefer? And I explain the pros and the cons. So I think there is definitely a better way in explaining that. But I would not be as far along today, regardless of who my upline is, if I did not have that backbone of a company like State Farm, where they just hammered it into me every day, right? I sat
Yeah.
there every day and took calls and did quotes. And, I had somebody right there I could ask a question to immediately. And so when you leave an environment like that, it's so quick to be able to spread your wings and fly because you're not learning the basics. You figured out the basics. You know how to talk to people. You know how to cold call. You know how to work leads. Now you just got to figure out your technology, your carriers, and how to get in front of people.
Yep. I think that's a great point. And I think there is such a I think it definitely relates, right? Like the LOA conversation, it's like, you're in a situation where someone thinks, okay, I'm in an LOA position, and let's say it's a really good one. Let's say it's someone in your office, maybe an LOA position in my office. I think our structure is really great too. And like Justin Brock has a really great LOA structure, and people like that. People in those positions, like they're in a great structure. I know a lot of people that they just play the blame game, whatever it is, right? If they're LOA, it's like they think I was LOA, right? I made a lower percentage, right? Whatever the case might be. But I've always said with LOA, a higher person, like if some people do so much better in an LOA structure and they write so much more business that the volume outweighs what they do as an independent. Like a higher percentage of zero is still zero.
Right.
Exactly. And so there's people that are in LOA positions and they blame the LOA position. There's people that are in the independent side and they blame the independent side, right? So it goes both ways. They blame the independent side saying, I didn't get the nurturing that maybe an LOA would get or something like that. There's always something to blame. Guys, my biggest message from the book is 3 things I would say. Number 1, don't play the blame game. Don't put the importance of your success in the shoulders of another person, no matter who it is. It could be an upline, it could be a mentor, whatever the case might be. Uplines and mentors are important, but they're not going to make and break you. That's number 1. Number 2, you got to work your freaking butt off, right? Like Rebecca works really hard and had worked really hard for a lot of years. Like you were saying, that 5 years period where just taking calls, getting the reps in. We talk a lot about hard work in the book and why it matters. For me, I've had a lot of years where I'll work 70, 80, 90 hours a week all year round, and so people see the finished product of a Rebecca Davis or a Christian Brindle or whatever the case might be. They don't see those long hours that were put in when nobody's watching. Mm-hmm. And it's work on your business, it's work on yourself, it's work on your skills. Number 3, one thing we talk about is in the book, then just a little sneak peek for you guys, is it's never the leads. One thing I noticed getting around a lot of really successful people, whether it be like Medicare Bob, whether it be Danielle Kunkel, whoever it might be, one thing I hear them all say routinely is it's never the leads. It's never the leads, right? It's the person working the leads. And if you're buying leads in your business, like, and maybe, maybe you can build out a structure where you don't need to buy leads, AKA, Rebecca Davis, grassroots marketing and all this stuff, so not to say that leads are the end all be all, but it's the same basic principle, right? Like if somebody's doing grassroots marketing and they follow Rebecca Davis's, let's say, blueprint on, how to work with businesses, how to create referral partnerships, all that stuff. And they talk to maybe 2 other businesses or something like that. They get shot down twice. They're like, this doesn't work. Well, no, it works perfectly great. You didn't talk to enough businesses. You're being lazy. You need to, it's like anything. You have to, law of large numbers, right? And same goes with leads, right? Like if someone's working a batch of leads and you're not getting anywhere with those leads, if there's somebody out there that's having success with those leads, it means that there's something that you could do better in your approach. You could change what you're saying. You could change what time of day you're calling, whatever the case might be. And I think there's a lot of that going on, in our industry. I think that's always been the case in our industry. Like, blame. It's a big blame game. Blame the leads, blame the upline, everything like that. This book solidifies. Stop playing the blame game. What could you do better with those leads? What could you do better in the role that you're in instead of contracting with 6 different uplines?
Right. For sure. And it's funny, and I'm fixing to post it. Like, yeah, I tried it once, it didn't work. Yeah, I hear that all the time, you know.
Yep.
And even with grassroots, I mean, we know about it for leads, right? We always hear it with leads, but that's the same thing with grassroots. Well, I went by this doctor's office and that dentist's office, and they weren't interested. But it's just right. It's no different than picking up the phone again. Great, go knock on another one. Go knock on do 100, and then come back and report. Did you get 10%? Did you get 20%? That's better, in my opinion. That's better than calling 100 leads and getting 2% or 3%, which is kind of the rate, right? And then the thing with referral partners too is kind of once you get a few, they also talk, especially if you do a good job for them. Then they pass their name to their friend and their neighbor and this guy over here in another town. And all of a sudden now you have 8 referral partners when you only started with 3, and you don't even know where the other 5 came from.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with leads, right? You do a good job on this lead, and then she tells her neighbor or tells her sister, and then they call you back. So you may only got 1 lead out of that batch, but if you sold it right, you might have ended up 5 sales.
Yep. Absolutely. It's so true. And it's the same. It's the same with clients, leads, you know, it all kind of relates to each other to the point that it's a law of large numbers. You need a large sample size of things. Like I talk to people all the time and me and Glenn talk about it all the time when we do shows and things like that, about people saying, oh, you know, I bought a batch of leads from this vendor, whatever you're doing, right? And they say they're no good. And then, you know, you start to poke around a little bit at their approach. It's like, okay, how many times did you call the lead? Once, twice. It's like, and then I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, in our office, we call them 8 times. We put them in automation. You know, we try different times of the day. Like our rate of being able to reach these people is way higher than everybody else because we have a system in place. And we're working the same leads that a lot of these people are complaining about. And so, same goes for the referral partners, right? You need to talk to enough people to where, because not everybody's going to say yes. It's no different than any other type of sale, right? You're going to get rejected. You're going to get people that say, I'm already referring my people to somebody, whatever the case might be. You need to talk to enough people. You need enough of a sample size. And, there's definitely a mentality in the insurance business, I feel, to where people feel like, you know, they need to be order takers. Well, if you want to be independent, you want to build an agency, you want to be a top producer, you're not going to be an order taker. You're going to have to kind of bang it out a little bit and go through some shit.
For sure. We kind of play in-house. We kind of play lead roulette. So every couple of weeks, I'm like, hand me all your leads that you can't get a hold of, or you're not. So I get a stack, and then I walk over to the next agent. And give them those. I'm like, now you hand me all your leads. You can't. I also rotate them around. I think sometimes they're still calling the same leads, right? But sometimes in their own mentality, oh, these are fresh. It's like a different name they're staring at, right? And they get a different voicemail. So and it's a different voice leaving a message, whatever. Or maybe their approach is different, or maybe they call it a different time during the day because they all have their own little way they work, right? Because I don't try to micromanage them. So we spread them around, and it's so funny. I think it's so funny when somebody gets a lead that's like 4 months old, and they're like, this is a terrible lead. And then all of a sudden you pass it to the next agent, and then they sell it, and they get so mad.
I remember an instance when I was a new agent, okay? And so this happened to me, guys. It comes from a place of experience. It's not coming from, you know, me standing on a high horse. It comes from that I've been in the trenches with you guys. I know exactly what you're going through. So when I was a new agent, I remember there was this lead, and it was a Precise Leads lead. Do you remember them?
Oh yeah.
But
they're
out of business now, I think. But I bought a batch with Precise Leads. This was way long ago. I don't even know what year it was. And there was an agent in our office that was a great friend of mine. We started together working with my dad. And I went to this lady's house. This was back before I did any phone sales. I used to go to every single home appointment. And she was downtown Salt Lake, maybe 20 minutes. I went to her house maybe 4, maybe 5 times. And every time I went there, she wasn't home. But she lived with her daughter. So her daughter would open the door and be like, oh, sorry, she's not here. Then she'd call her and be like, Mom, you made an appointment with this insurance guy. And I got so pissed off that I she used to hand me the phone. The daughter would hand me the phone, and I'd talk to the lady, and I'd be like, well, it's okay. We can reschedule for next week. It's no problem. So, but it was like the 5th or 6th time. I just kind of was done. I was like, you know what? You're not respecting my time. Just forget it. So I go back to the office, and I tell my dad what happened. And my dad's like, well, give it to him. I'm like, why? I'm like, she's just a time waster. He's like, give it to him. He's like, you didn't get it, but he might. We don't want to waste the lead. And so I gave it to him. He goes out on the appointment. First time, writes it. And I think he still has her. I think it's hard. Like we talked about it like as recently as a year ago. He still has it.
Well, what happened is you probably set her straight. And so the next guy that calls, she remembered that. So she's stuck with it, right?
I probably should have set her straight and then rescheduled and went back. That's what I should have done. But yeah, I mean, it's so true that one person, I mean, it's never the leads, right? It's always the person working the leads. There's something that you could do, something you could tweak in your approach that's going to cause you to have more success with them.
So this person says it's not the lead, it's the person contacting lead, Christian Brindle. My actual favorite quote on this is Galen Hendricks. Nobody says it better. Oh, you're not interested? It's because you're not interesting.
Yes.
As the agent. And that's like, right?
Yes.
If you really take that to heart, you're like, oh God, that hit home, right? And there's a reason why I'm the grassroots queen, right? Because I did the lead thing with State Farm. I understood how it worked, and it was PNC. You have to do the lead thing. And I saw, the dialing of the phone and this sitting there, and I was like, oh God, there's got to be a better way in my mind, right? Because wasn't my thing. So that's why I did the grassroots thing. But ultimately, the grassroots thing is still the same way. You still have to work it.
Yes.
It takes time. And it's no different than the lead thing. Once you get enough business, if you're only doing you don't need the leads in because you're going to have referral people coming in. There'll be at some point where if it's just you can only handle so much and you'll have it. Mm-hmm. Now, if you decide, oh, I'm good, but I want to grow still. So now you start bringing on downlines or you bring on LOAs. Well, now you got to figure out how to feed those people. So then you got to go back to your ways and keep doing what you're doing. But if you're just a one-man show, I guarantee you there's going to be a point, whether you do grassroots or leads, that you're going to have enough people in your organization that are going to feed you. And then you maybe only have to do what you really like to do to keep it going because you're on the downhill slide, right? And you just got to stay in front of it at that point.
Absolutely. I think it's a great point. And it's kind of funny because I feel like, and I put a lot of thought into this, like when I was writing this book, mainly when I was doing the outline, like you were talking about earlier, like I was putting a lot of thought into like, what makes so many agents not get it? And I really honestly believe that more than anything else, it's a game between the ears. I think it's a mindset thing. I think it's a mentality thing of exactly what we're talking about. It's having the mentality that I understand how the game works. I understand that if I talk to 10 leads or I talk to 10 referral partners or whatever it is, and maybe I have a 10, 20, 30% success rate, that's the game. So if I want to get to a place where I want to hit my numbers, I just got to crunch the numbers, do the numbers on how many people I need to talk to in that realm. I feel like it's so much a mindset and a mentality thing that separates people that are big time producers from people that aren't. It's a mental thing for so many people. I think once you get the mental part of it figured out, and I think once you get yourself straight on the mental side, then the sky's the limit for so many individuals. And I think that they get in their own way. I think a lot of agents get in their own way, and we want to prevent that. We want to stop that as much as possible. We want to give them the information that lets them know, hey, you are getting in your own way. Mm-hmm. You are your own worst enemy, right? Like you don't want to work leads. You don't want to go talk to referral partners. You don't want to do grassroots marketing. I hear all these things from agents all the time. And what I get out of it is like, well, you don't want to work. Like
ding, 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 ding. We have a winner.
You don't want to work. And so it takes work, guys. Whatever you're putting your energy into, you're going to have results with it. But you got to put that energy in that consistent massive action into it, and you're going to have results from that.
Hold on, my staff is staring at me. There's somebody on United Healthcare on the line about, you guys will love this, we're all agents here, about an email I sent about a problem. Here's the thing, I don't remember sending an email about a problem.
And he can't tell us who.
And he won't talk to anybody in the organization.
Oh,
Can I
gotta
get
love
a
that.
callback number?
Okay.
So I won't talk to any of my staff, but supposedly I sent an email about a problem. I'm looking at the post-it and I'm like, I don't remember an email about a problem, but I'm putting out like 500 fires a day, so Lord only knows. Hey guys, once you get to where you're not selling anymore, you're past that role, all you do is put out fires. Let me tell you, it's contracting and fires. Is that in your book, Christian? Because I'm freaking losing my mind.
There might be a little part of it. I mean, one thing I can say is every superstar I've ever met, they having so many conversations on a consistent basis, they can't keep them all straight. I know I'm in that boat. That happens to me all the time. Someone calls in from they called in like a week ago. They're like, so-and-so's on the phone. I'm like, who the fuck is that? And they're like, remember you met with her there? And I'm like, yeah, so it just comes
like,
to
hey man, it sounds like 3 syllables trying to figure out who this person.
It's like a guessing game. It's like dun, 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 dun.
Oh, it's bad. And the older you get, let me tell you, Christian, the older you get, the worse it gets. I used to have a memory like an elephant, and I do not remember like I once did, and it's really bothering me. Like, because I used to be able to, like, oh, you talked to this person 6 months ago. I'm like, oh yeah, he had a quote. It was this, this, and this. He wanted to go with that, but he needed to talk to his wife first. He had 3 dogs. Their names were this, this, and this, and he had really weird sandals on. I used to be able to recollect like that. Now I'm like, they're sitting in front of me, and like I talked to him yesterday, and I do not remember the conversation.
It happens. Like for me, it's having so many conversations, and like your mind only has so much room in it. Your memory only has so much room in it. I mean, that guys, if that's something that you should strive for. I'm going to say this on it. Okay. If you want to be a superstar, you need a humongous pipeline, and you need a lot of things going on all at the same time. You want to be talking to as many people as possible. Sales is a volume game. It's a numbers game. And so the moment you get to a place, I feel like, where you're forgetting who's who and, that kind of thing. And it's like, that's actually not a bad thing always, because it means you have a lot going on in your business all the time. I think if someone calls in and like there's a lot of agents where like they remember every little thing about all their clients. And sometimes I'll be like, my first thought process is, you might not have enough clients. Because if you have a couple thousand clients, you're not going to remember everything about them all. You could be 25, it doesn't matter to me. And so
So I got this coffee. I had to go sign my taxes, and I had my husband with me, and right around the corner, there was this little, like a taco shop type place, like in a trailer around the corner. And so I went over there and got the coffee, and we were talking, and I'm like, you guys have a sandwich here? My staff has kind of got it a couple times. It's amazing. And my staff hasn't been there that I know of in like 6 months, right? But they brought me one once before. And she's like, oh, you must be with Cannonball. And I'm like, yes, I am. That was awkward. And then she's like making it. She's like, yeah, your girls over there are so nice, and I just love my insurance policy. And I'm like, oh, you're a client. Well, wonderful. I'm glad I stopped.
Do you want a tip?
Yeah, like
love it.
Now I'm to the point where like I don't know everybody, and it's a weird feeling when you get to where you have staff and they're doing it and they're doing a good job, and you start to rely on them so much that you start to be okay with not knowing everybody, but then ultimately you run into somebody and you kind of feel like you should know them. You're like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know you. You're getting our newsletter, right?
You like it? Yeah.
Hey, Myra, welcome to the party.
Myra Luna, the real superstar.
Speaking of a superstar agent.
Yes. I feel like there's different levels of problems. not problems. I don't want to, maybe that's not the right word, but like, I think there's real levels of challenges. That's the word I want to use, that people go through as they're growing, right? So like when someone's brand new, their challenge might be, I don't have enough people to talk to.
Mhm.
I need to find more people to talk to. I need to fill the pipeline more. They get past that, right? Like they figure it out, right? They're putting in the time, they're putting in the work. They have a very full pipeline. They get a lot of people to talk to. Then the challenge becomes, I can't handle all these people by myself. I have now customer service. I have a book, a business I got to take care of, but I don't want my production to fall off. Then you're like, okay, I need to fill roles in my organization, right? Yeah, you move up, you have a different kind of challenge. I mean, the challenges never stop in business, but I feel like they just become more complex in a way. But I feel like if you want to really be a top producing insurance agent, you really want to be a killer. You want to embrace those next level problems, right? Like you like bring them on. I want those kind of problems. Those are the kind of problems I want. People always say, first world problems. Well, I want first world problems in my business. I don't
Well,
want
it's just a
problems.
part of the business evolution. So as your business evolves, you evolve, your problems, your solutions, your challenges, whatever you want to call them, they evolve too.
Yes.
And honestly, guys, if you're new and on this call, your challenges just get more challenging.
Yes.
Because you're dealing with now I only handle the challenges, right? For the most part, if it's clients, unless they're direct referrals to me, then I still write them. But so I'm only being pulled in when the challenge is so challenging. Out of 8 people, they can't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So your challenges get stronger as you evolve. So evolution is good. It's part of the business, but just know it doesn't matter how far evolved you get. There's new challenges. I mean, the challenges of Galen and Agent Pipeline and, all those people. I can't even imagine their day-to-day challenge because I can barely imagine my own. And they're dealing with 60,000 agents or 10,000 agents versus a few hundred agents. It's mind-boggling sometimes to think, Joe Camper, fill the pipeline with more tacos.
Let's go, Joe. This is something that I think about a lot, right? When you, no matter how high you get up on the food chain, like this is something I think about all the time, right? Like who in life would we put at the top of the food chain, right? Who's climbed to the top of the food chain in life in terms of an accomplishment, right? Like the first person that comes to mind to me is like the president, right? The president of the United States, whoever it is, no matter what party you are, like whoever the president is at that moment in time, they've accomplished a ton, right? They're the leader of the free world. They got more challenges than all of us put together on a day-to-day basis, right? Challenges don't stop with success. They become more frequent and they can become more difficult and more complex, but that's okay.
Wait. Time out. Are you saying I need a press secretary for my problems? Will that help?
Eventually. Well, hey, before we know it, you'll have 10 million followers on TikTok and you have to have a press secretary because that's a lot of people, Rebecca. People be like, Rebecca said this and I'm offended.
I'm gonna pull Christian in because he'll offend the other group of people, so they'll be even.
Yes. But that's something that I think about all the time, like people like that every level of success is going to come with new challenges. Like life, I feel like when you become a superstar in anything, right? But in this situation, we're talking about insurance agents, right? So when you become a superstar, I think you become tougher. You develop a very thick skin. Like Rebecca's got a thick skin. She's got an issue with a client. She's like, I got it. I'll take care of it. I'll call him back. I'm not worried about it. Like I'll get through. We'll figure it out. Like when you're new and you have 5 clients, let's say, or 10 clients, and you get a chargeback, it's like the end of the world. When you have 600 clients or 6,000 clients or whatever the case might be, you get a chargeback. You're like, oh, that sucks. Oh well, we got 6 new ones that are being written right now. So it's to the point where the old challenges aren't affecting you anymore. At one point, they really, really hurt you. They really, really kind of brought you to your knees. Now they seem like nothing. right? And that's where I think evolution comes from as a business owner, especially insurance as a producer, because we're in a very much a production and results oriented field. I mean, all fields are that to an extent, but yeah, I mean, that's what I think about when I think of superstar agents. Like, I love looking at someone. I'm like, they're a freaking stud. They're a boss. They're a superstar, whatever the case might be. But that's what everybody goes through when they climb that ladder. And it's difficult for some people. Some people think about success and how great it will be to be successful. But it's like, yeah, I mean, if you're Tom Cruise, you can't go to the movies. You know, if you're Tom Cruise, you can't go to the grocery store. You'll get mauled by people, right? So you have to hide inside of your house. I was watching a YouTube video where a really big YouTuber got and did a collaboration with Justin Bieber. And he was talking about it after the fact when Justin Bieber was gone. And he's like, it was insane because there was 15 paparazzi cars parked outside of his house waiting for him to do something. And we get in my car, we drive away, they're following us and everything like that. Like that's the kind of challenges that come with really, the more successful you become, the more of that kind of stuff you actually end up encountering. So it's just interesting to think about it from that perspective. It doesn't get easier, but it just becomes more complex challenges, but you become a tougher, stronger person as a result.
Absolutely. And for the record, whoever put as she starts crying, I only cry happy tears. So I only cry when I talk to you all about how amazing this business is and how blessed I am to be in this business. Believe it or not, I can be kind of a cold-hearted person when I think you're being dumb. Like, it doesn't faze me at all. And no. Ask my husband. I do not cry over my husband's stupidity. But I do
My wife
get
doesn't
very
either.
emotional when we talk about the business and what it can do. And I think somebody put it, it's just your passion for the business. And it's absolutely right. I will cry over somebody's happiness in an instant. There was, and I'm not going to say her name because I don't want to embarrass her, but I was off working with some agents and we were doing a ride along and we were discussing the plans for AP and what to do and this and that. And then here I was like trying to be honest, but not hurt feelings. And I'm like, well, and we were discussing different things, logos, all kinds of stuff. And she's like, yes, of course. And I'm like, well, I personally would do this, this, and this. And I was just very straightforward. And this is why, and this is what I see. And she just started crying. And we had to pull over. And then, because she was crying, I was crying. And I grabbed a fan out of my bag and I'm fanning her with the devoted fan, Myra, that I got from 8% because I was hot. And I'm like, and I'm tearing up and crying, and she's bawling, and I'm like, why are we crying? I'm like, I don't even know why we're crying. And she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, I have waited for years for this moment for somebody to actually give me this kind of real direction. It blew my mind. That's why we were crying. It was happy tears over real direction, over real business strategy. And I was like, wow. And again, once again, why I'm in this business, why I do this business, why do I not only help the clients, why I help the clients, but now why I want to help agents. For moments like that, we're sitting on the side of the road in the middle of soybean fields because we're lost trying to find this house. So believe it or not, it was very, very much like Texas. And we're crying on the side of the road. I don't even know where we're crying, but I'm crying with her. And it's because she's getting real direction. And she's successful. This is not an agent that's not successful. She has put in the work. She has figured it out on her own. But I guess, and I'm not a mind reader, but I felt like what I got out of it is maybe the first time she felt like she wasn't alone anymore.
Yeah.
In doing this, creating the success for her and her family, which those are the reasons why I cry.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of stuff is what makes our business so special. You know, I just got back from Florida yesterday. So I was in Orlando or outside of Orlando for 2 or 3 days. You know, I was in town visiting Patricia St. Louis, who works with us, and spending time at her office, trying to work with her, trying to help her business. And that's that's something that, it's fun. It's fun to do. It's fun to work with other agents. It's fun to kind of see them grow. And I remember, like, and I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this, but I remember when she first was getting licensed, and we first started talking and things like that, to see her in her own office, I think she wrote up like 2 or 3 new clients while I was there. Like, to see her growth has been awesome. And I feel like, when an agent starts to kind of blossom and come into their own, it's a really special feeling. And it's nothing that I did. She would have been, she will do well no matter where she's at, I feel. But it's just fun to kind of have that relationship and that partnership and just kind of see an agent really kind of develop, and there's so many agents, that we've worked with. I know there's lots of agents that you've worked with, and you kind of have that feeling. It's almost like, you see them kind of develop and kind of blossom and kind of come into their own. And that's what the business is all about. We might not be able to prevent 92% of agents from failing, but what if we could do 90% of them fail instead of 92? That extra 2% is a lot of people.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's probably hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, not quite that much, but I mean, thousands and thousands for sure, right?
Yep.
So imagine if you could change 50,000 more lives.
Yeah.
Because of this business, by helping somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's on the call, so I'm going to put him on the spot. I mean, nobody else knows this except me and you, but you have a new LOA in your office that was a downline of mine.
Yeah.
And he struggled as a downline. And we've talked about it, and we talked about it, and we talked about it, and he struggled. And I kept telling him, I think, actually at the time I was like, you should come work for me. Move down to Stephenville, come work for me. Because he's such a wonderful human being. He has a heart bigger than Texas. And I'm like, and then he finally was ready, like a year and a half later. And at the time I didn't have any seats. And then about the same time, you posted an ad saying you needed somebody.
Yeah.
And he talked to you. And then he talked to me, and I said, yes. I'm like, I honestly believe if you're going to figure this business out, that's how you got to do it. And then me and you talked, and I told him he's the most loving, caring guy you'll ever meet. But he needs to be in an environment where he's surrounded by it 24/7. That's what he needs to get successful, to get off the ground. And then from there, down the road, he can create his own business and things like that. But I knew he needed that. And so when he was able to find that somewhere with a friend, he's like, I need a release. I'm like, that's fine. Just tell Christian to send me over what he needs. Yeah. I'm like, I want you to be successful, whatever that success looks like. And you being 6 hours away, not working as a field agent because you're scared, is not going to do it. You need to be in somebody's office. And I am so glad he took that leap of faith. And I pray for him all the time that you and him form an amazing partnership, and he does amazing things because he is such a human, has such a huge heart, and he will make an amazing agent. He's just got to be engulfed in it.
Yeah. I mean, and we love him. We love him here. And Bobby, if you're watching, we love him here. Everybody in our office loves him. I was talking to Stormy the other day. Stormy's like our fly-by-night agent. She's here sometimes, but Stormy's at a place now where she can write business on her own. And I worked with her for a long time to get her to that point. But she can write business on her own. She's to that point. And I was talking to her the other day, and she's like, I'm excited to see. I'm excited for Bobby to just have a great AEP. She's like, I really like him. He's a nice person, and Stormy doesn't like anybody. That's not true. But there's probably way more people she dislikes than like she just can get turned off by people. She was like, I really like Bobby, and I think he's a nice person, and I'm excited to see him do well during AEP. I'm like, me too. He's gonna have a great AEP, and he's come a long way from when he got here. He's doing really well, and everybody in our office likes him. Celeste likes him. Carrie likes him. He's a great fit here, and we're happy to have him. And but yeah, I think it's funny because some people, so coming back to the upline conversation, and I don't want to kind of go off forever and ever, so I'll kind of keep this brief, but there's been people that have been contracted with me that go off to other people in the industry, right? Like maybe they'll go to Tony, maybe they'll go to Rebecca, maybe they'll go to Joanna, whoever, right? And they do better there. There's been other people that work with other people I know in the industry, and for some reason they just struggle and they come with me and they might do better with me. I feel like just because a situation doesn't work out with a particular person doesn't mean they're a bad upline. It means that everybody connects differently with different people. So like there's agents that will connect and work better with Rebecca than me, 1,000%. There's agents that will connect and work better with me than maybe somebody else. And I feel like that's something that doesn't get talked about enough, because there's so much conversation in the group all the time. Like, so-and-so sucks. So-and-so, I'm under so-and-so and they suck. Like, that's just so unfair, because if you work with enough agents, you're going to run into somebody that feels like, you didn't do enough for them, no matter what you're doing, no matter who you are. If you have 1,000 agents, you're going to have 100% of them be happy. 500 agents? No. And a lot of us, you, myself, Tony Merwin, like, we're all great at what we do, but not every agent is, Tony said, everybody crying. So that's something that I think agents need to hear, right? Like, we all have respect for each other. We all love each other. We're all friendly with each other. And like when somebody moves from senior security benefits, whatever, and I find out they want to move to us or whatever the case might be, I don't think, oh, senior security benefits or whoever must not have been doing a good job for them. I think it just maybe for some reason, maybe it wasn't a good fit. But I always want to have a conversation with them, because I'm like, what was the problem? Because I don't know how different it will be over here,
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. Everybody's got me jacked up now. I completely agree. And I actually learned this as a kid. And I've talked about it before. I came from a farm ranch business. My dad trained horses. He gave lessons. And I would hear him every Wednesday night was lesson night, and every Saturday morning was lesson morning, unless we were at a show. And then on the weekends, then they would but Wednesdays were lesson night. And I'd be out there helping once I was old enough to do that. And I was showing and I was helping. And then we always had a bonfire and had the kids roasting marshmallows and this and that. And I just remember there would be lined up of people, and they do their lesson, they take their horse down, and they come sit around the bonfire. And they would talk to me. And I was about 16 at the time. And by then I'd already made my first 100,000 on the back of a horse. So I was successful in the horse business. So they would talk to me too about some things. And there would be, what does your dad mean when he says this? And to me, it was so obvious what he meant, but they just didn't understand. So 16-year-old me put it in a whole different type of light. I said the same thing. I just said it completely different, but ultimately it was the exact same thing. And they're like, oh, okay, I get it now. Why didn't he say it like that? And I'm like, well, he did. He just used different words. And I think it works that way in our business with uplines. Me and you can tell somebody the exact same thing, but literally the verbiage we use, for some people, it'll turn a light bulb on, and for some people, it'll turn the light off. Yes. Right? But we told them the exact same thing. And I think that's why sometimes when an upline doesn't work, or it's not a match, we'll say, they can go across town or across state or whatever and find a different match. And ultimately, they're getting the same information. They're just getting it a little bit differently that fits them and their style of learning. And it makes a match made in heaven. But ultimately, both people did what they were supposed to do. They did their trainings. They did their ride-alongs. They did this. They did this. Whatever the piece is. But it just didn't click. But yet the way you said it, all of a sudden I was like, oh, well, why didn't you just say it like that? And then I'm thinking, or you're thinking, like, well, I did.
I said that exact thing. It's impossible too, because the person that said it to where they didn't follow has said it to countless other people, and they completely got it. You don't know how somebody's going to perceive something, or like what's going to make it easy for them to understand. You don't know what verbiage to use that's going to click for them. It's just it's such, I mean, all I know is this. I know there's a lot of great people in our industry. There's a lot of wonderful people in our industry. And it's not competition. I don't look at it as competition in the slightest. I think we're all in this together, and that's helping people on Medicare, helping people with their health insurance, helping people with life insurance, whatever we're doing, right? Someone's in PNC, like helping people solve a complicated problem, and that's insurance. And I feel like all of us are trying to accomplish the same mission, and that's try to help people do that more effectively, while running our own businesses at the same time that do that very effectively.
I mean, it's like going to the grocery store and being like, man, I wish there was one less farmer because there's too many corn nuggets on the shelf.
Yep.
That's absurd, right? There's never there's never too much beef on the shelf. There's never too many corn nuggets on the shelf. There's just never not. We're in the same business. And I think that's where some of the hang up gets too, is they don't see it that way. I don't care if you walk in the grocery store and literally on every shelf is another insurance agent or another insurance product. They're going to pick up what they like and they're going to put back what they don't. And it's just that simple. And this week it might be corn nuggets and next week is Chip Ahoy, whatever. Mm-hmm. And we just have to remember we are providing a service and we do it our way. And Sandra's really good about teaching this. Be you, because you're going to attract the people you're supposed to attract and you're going to repel the people you're supposed to repel. Yep. And that is a hard kind of nut to grasp. As easy it is, and sometimes it's a hard thing to realize, but it is so true, especially with agents, if you're training agents or even clients. If you're really struggling with somebody, you're probably just not that match. And it is as simple as that and nothing else. Nobody's to blame, nothing else. You're just not a match.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, and do you have in this book, do you have any self stories, like when your dad maybe rode your butt and not doing what you're supposed to do as a youngin in the business, anything like that? Is there any telltales of Christian?
So there's not a lot of dad stories in this book, mainly due to the fact that the previous book I put out for agents, How to Be a Six-Figure Medicare Agent, all of you probably know it at this point. Everybody at the summit got a copy. Everybody's got that book at this point, I feel like. That book goes into a lot of that. And so I didn't want to regurgitate the exact same things. So there's not a lot of dad talk in this book. It is very much exactly what I focused on to do well as a young agent. And even today, it's exactly what I, strive for in terms of okay, I need this many enrollments. This is how I'm going to do it. There's a lot of that. There's a lot. It's a very strategical book, but it's also a very, in your face. This is what you have to know. This is what you have to do. And this is what you need to stop doing kind of book. It's very much like a guidebook to in the mind of a superstar. That's kind of what it's meant to be. And it's not even necessarily saying that I'm the greatest insurance agent in the world, but I think I'm pretty damn good. And
you figured out a thing or two, right?
Yeah, one or two things. And I've been around a ton of others that have been incredibly brilliant at what they do, like yourself in our industry. And so it comes from a mixture of those two things. It comes from this is what they think about. This is what they focus on. This is how they get there. And they don't let these trivial little things get in the way. So that the book is very much about that. There's not a lot of, early on stories, but there are tons of early on stories in How to Be a Six-Figure Medicare Agent. So if you don't have that book, that's where you can find that.
So which one, if they haven't read either one, which one should they read first?
Oh man. They're so different. They're so different in terms of what the focus is. I mean, How to Be a Six-Figure Medicare Agent is very much, it probably should have been like a biography. It's very much a Christian Brindle storybook. It talks a lot of intimate detail. If you're ever just dying to know about me, that's probably the book to read. For me, I might be just saying this because it's fresh and because it's interesting, but I would probably start with Superstar. I love Superstar. I think it's the best product in terms of book written material that I put out there for agents. A lot of work went into it, and I think How to Be a Six-Figure Medicare Agent has a lot of great tips and tricks of the trade that will help your business. I do believe that. But Superstar is 100% real, raw, authentic. You want to be a superstar. You want to be a top producer. You want to bang out those apps. This is how you do it. This is what you need to focus on. This is what exactly you have to do. And it's unfiltered from the standpoint that some people will read it and they might not like it. They might be like, I'm not willing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But at least you know what it's going to take. You're not having someone that, like there's a lot of people in our business, like there's a lot of recruiters, MLM recruiters, whatever the case might be. And they paint a picture that's just not reality,
Right.
In terms of like what you have to do. I've heard people say things like, you can work 10, 15 hours a week, make $400,000 or $500,000 a year. It's no big deal. It's like, you can do that, huh? I'm like, teach me, because I work all the time. I'm working all the time. It seems like, and so I feel like it's the opposite of that. It's the opposite of the, say whatever it takes to get you in. It's more of like, this is it. This is what you need to focus on. This is what things are going to look like. And this is what you're going to have to do.
It's so interesting or kind of funny that we're talking about this today because, I'm a TikTok person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I can work my TikTok. There was something on TikTok that I saw just last night. And I saved it to favorites. If anybody knows where to find your favorites at on TikTok, it'd be great help.
I don't think I'm any help there.
Creator tools, maybe.
You know more about TikTok than I do.
Well, I just started using the favorites thing because I'm like, I don't have time and I want to go back and look at that or look at that a little bit more because believe it or not, there's a lot of stuff in there that's very interesting.
Yep.
Oh, did I send it to? Oh, wait, Melissa just came in.
Well, that's going to be your favorites.
Oh, I think she found it for me.
Experiment making headlines by the chain.
No, that wasn't it. Is it this one?
When interviewing people, I have one question I love.
No, it wasn't that one.
You didn't send it to me.
Oh, gosh, I knew
Go
I
to your
said.
profile.
I found the profile, but now I'm not finding it. Oh, it was like show short and sweet, and so.
Are you on your little?
Yeah, I found it. Thank you. Melissa showed me. Now I can't find it. It's never where you put it, right? But anyways, the gist of it was you want to make like billionaire money, but you don't want to put in billionaire hours. This is basically the gist of it. He said it better. but it's exactly what you're saying, right? I mean, ultimately, it's what you're saying. You want to be a superstar agent, but you don't want to put in superstar hours. And at some point, you can level off and regroup and kind of go again and level off and regroup. I mean, this is kind of the nature of the beast. And maybe you get to a point where you are comfortable. That's where you want to be. You love your life here. You love your size. You love your income. And you just hover. And I think that's a fantastic place to be. And then when you're in that place, maybe you don't have to work 80 hours a week anymore. Maybe you can do it on 35 hours a week because you got the operations and everything's just in place. And now you're just putting in kind of what you lose. When people pass away or they go somewhere else, you're just filling that in and you have your stream. So it's not killing you anymore.
Yeah.
But everybody's business model is different. But
yes,
to get there, you do. You got to put in the work. I'm excited to read it, Christian. I can tell you're super proud of it, which makes me honestly want to read it more. I think doing books, anything like this in print, putting on Amazon, it's vulnerable. I don't care if it's a backdoor to what it really takes. If it's how you got to six figures, I mean, even grassroots. I mean, I put it on paper and put it out there. So I put it on paper. Now everybody can judge it, right? Yep. One way or the other, they'll have an opinion of it. And, for the ones that make sense for it makes sense and they approve it. And you just got to remember for the ones that doesn't, it's okay. It's okay. But you're putting yourself out there and, that is growth in itself. Just putting that on paper and then putting it to print, you grew from that. I grew from it. And, those are the other things that it takes to be a superstar. You have to keep putting yourself in situations that is uncomfortable to grow from.
Yeah.
And I'm the queen of uncomfortable because I'm just a hot mess express normally. So I do it all the time. And you learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like you read my mind. I mean, you get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like you understand that if where you're at right now, if you want to go to that next place, you're gonna be in some uncomfortable situations. Like part of being uncomfortable is like being in a room where that everybody in here is probably more successful than me. Whereas on the flip side, you might be used to a majority of the time, I'm the most successful person in the room and everybody's giving me love and everybody's, like pampering me. But you want to get to the next place. Maybe you need to get in a different room to where you're one of the least successful people in the room in comparison to everybody else in the room. That's where I think you grow. And that might be a little uncomfortable, like for me, right? Like my ego might take a hit from that. My ego I might feel like, I'm Christian Brindle. I'm on a billboard. I'm on billboards all over town. Don't you know who I am? Like whatever. But that's where you get to a place where you develop, right? And you can get to a place from point A to point B. And that's just an example. But if you are a great salesperson, but you have trouble speaking in front of groups, you start doing seminars. That's getting comfortable being uncomfortable. You're talking to a group. Some people just have horrible stage fright. You have a seminar of 30 people, feels like 300 if you're not used to it.
For sure.
It's a crowd, if you will, like getting on stage and speaking at conferences like you've done, like I've done, right? When I first started doing that, it was uncomfortable. For you, I'm sure, I don't know, maybe it wasn't for you. Maybe you're just like, I got this.
No, like
you don't show it.
Adrenaline rushed, right? And scared out of your mind. I remember the first time I got up on a stage, Cody put me on a stage and, I was so scared. But when I come off the stage, the first thing I did was walk over to Cody, and he's probably not on, but if he ever catches this, he'll remember. The first thing I watched over, I whispered into his ear. I was like, oh my God, what a rush. I want to do more of that. Because as scary as it was also thrilling once you got done with it. And for me, because I grew up competitively showing horses, and I haven't done that in a decade, it was the closest thing I have experienced personally to walking into that show pen and dropping my hand in front of 5 judges and winning the competition, right? It was the same kind of mental adrenaline rush. And afterwards, I vibed it for a while. And I wasn't very good. And you guys, if you've watched me, you know how much I've evolved in speaking in person, because I was not the kid in school that raised their hand to speak in front of the class. I was the one that had to go to the bathroom and didn't show up until class was back over, right? I did everything I could. In fact, on our senior project, we had to do like this whole 40-page essay and read. You know what I did mine on? We could pick any topic. I did it on underage gambling, because I live by Vegas and I could get away with it because I was so tall. But I spoke 5 minutes, and I had the classroom set up as craps tables, blackjack tables, poker tables. And all I did was teach everybody how to play the games. That's how I got away out of talking in front of the class for an hour. We just played games for an hour. I mean, that was never my thing. But now, honestly, I enjoy it so much. And every time I do it, I get a little bit better. I can tell. And I know people can tell, because people that have seen me, like Tony Merwin and yourself and Myra and stuff, who's kind of followed this journey I've been on with speaking, they can tell. They may not see me for a few episodes, so to speak, and then they catch me somewhere and they're like, wow, you've been doing this a minute. You can tell you've been doing it. You've been getting on stages. You've been working that, muscle. You've been practicing it. And it's huge, and it makes a difference. No different than working the cold call muscle or working the,
Mhm.
referral muscle. It's a muscle, and you've got to work it, or you're never going to get better at it. So you got to be okay to fall on your face, which I've done,
Yeah.
and cry in front of 500 people, which I've done, to learn how to work the muscle.
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely one of those things where, like, I mean, I tell our new agents all the time, I'm like, if you're making calls, you know, you're going to feel probably nervous until you get punched in the face a few times, metaphorically speaking. Like you're going to, and some things might need to crash and burn. Not saying if you get on stage, you want to crash and burn, different story, but like you get better by doing, and experiencing and having that experience. And, yeah, I think it's just like anything, but I heard somebody say it. I can't even remember who it was. So I want to give them a shout out. I just can't remember who said it, but it really resonated with me. Like, people tell themselves all the time, people say, be self-aware. This is who I am. Be like, well, this is who you are today. You're only that way if you accept it. And you're like, I mean, when people say that, the thing that goes through my mind is like, so you're saying you can't change. You've already accepted, I can't do this. I can't do that. My personality doesn't mesh with this. Be like, well, it could, but you've told yourself that it can't, And so some people might be like, oh, I have stage fright. I have stage fright. I can't get in front of a stage. I wet myself, whatever the case might be. Well, you're telling yourself that, like whatever it is that you tell yourself on a day-to-day basis that you can't do, you're right either way. But there's such a thing as being true to who you are, but still understanding I can grow at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Christian, it is like 5:15. We've been on this for like an hour and 15 minutes, and I know you're super busy. You want to get home to your family. It is Friday afternoon. I don't want to keep you any longer. I'm thankful everybody's stuck with us this long, because we've kind of been all over the place. But any final thoughts, or where can we find the book? What's the book going to cost? Are you going to send me an autographed copy? That's what I want to know. That's my final thought.
Yes. So I wanted to say, Rebecca, thank you for having me on. This was a ton of fun. I loved this conversation. I could be on for another 2 hours.
I think I could too. That's why I was looking at the time, like maybe I should.
It would just fly on. Thank you all for sticking on. This was awesome, and I really enjoyed this. If you want to pick up the book, it was supposed to be available on Amazon today. Had a few hiccups, had to fix some things with the cover and blah blah blah. So, but it should be up hopefully by tomorrow. I will post it as soon as it's available. You can find it on Amazon. It's going to be under Christian Brindle, Superstar. Should be able to find it. It's a beautiful blue book with a big star on it. It's really cool. I love Celeste. Shout out to Celeste, who designed it in my office. She's fantastic. She's a rock star. And absolutely, by the way, shoot me and send me a message when we're done of an address you want a book to go to, and I will personally have an autographed one sent to you as soon as we get our first shipment.
I gotta have an autographed one put on my shelf.
I have an autographed one of your book. It's over on my shelf over here. So it's the least I can do. But
awesome. And, real quick, if you got a question for Christian, I'll give you 60 seconds to pop it in there and he can answer it. Otherwise, we're going to jump off of here. Y'all, if you have family weekend plans, have an amazing weekend. I think I'm going to be stuck working this weekend. I got to fit in something though, right? Because my kid was back to school the last week, and then I'm actually going to be working Labor Day weekend. I have to go train some agents. So we got to fit in an adventure. We're behind on our ventures. I knew this would happen as we got closer to AEP. So I got to figure something out, because we got 5 or 7 more to do. And I'm trying to figure out how to get that many in the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But, countdown, you got 30 seconds for a comment or a question. You got Christian at your beck and call right now. I got him raw. What is it that you've always wanted to know?
Well, while we're waiting to see if a question pops up. So, yeah, guys, look for the book on Amazon. I will post it when it's available. And if you haven't got Rebecca's book yet, you're absolutely nutty. Like, you need to get Rebecca's book as well. Her book is incredible. I mean, if you want to know about grassroots marketing, building a business without buying leads, like, that is the best book you're going to find anywhere. So make sure to get Rebecca's book if you haven't already. I mean, and by the way, you could probably buy Superstar and Rebecca's book, and it's like probably, I don't know, $35-$40 for them together. So like, come on, guys.
Bundle. Hey, we got a question. If you had $10K to invest today for AP, where would you spend it?
That's a great question. Okay, so here's what I would do if it was me. Some of this stuff might be hard to do at this point in time, but let's just say, because we're so close, right? I think I would do mailbox power, direct mail. I would put some of it into that. I wouldn't put everything into one thing. I wouldn't put all my eggs into one basket. So I would probably do some mailbox power, direct mail, a couple different postcards. I would do some seminars. I would put maybe 2,000 or 3,000 into the mailbox power, direct mail. I would put maybe 2,000 to 3,000 into some seminars. So then you're at 4 to 6. Let's just say 2,500 into each, right? So you're at 5,000. I would then put about 2,500 into Facebook ads if you know how to run them. You can blow $2,500 really fast and get very mediocre results if you don't know how to run Facebook ads. You don't have to put together some fancy dancy ad either. It can be simple if you know what you're doing. It's all about the targeting. It's all about where you're sending traffic, all that. So maybe 2,500 into that. And then I would probably, I'm biased, so I'd probably put the remaining 2,500 into Lead Heroes, because there's only like 2 vendors we'll ever buy leads from these days. And it's Lead Concepts from time to time and Lead Heroes. We pretty much do self-generated leads in every other capacity outside of that. So that's what I would do. I would put 2,500 into all those different baskets, and you're very well diversified. If one is a little slower than anticipated, you have others you can fall back on. It's great diversity. So that's what I would do.
I'll add to it. First and foremost, I would call my upline and my carrier managers and see who's going to match my 10 grand. So now I have 20 or 30 to play with.
Yes.
So then you can drop more money into everything Christian's talking about. But I would also, instead of maybe in some of those other things, I would probably also invest in maybe some Medicare 101 seminars, get yourself some restaurants booked. You can still get into those and save some money for that. And then grassroots, make yourself some baskets and get into your community. That will take the least amount of your money. You could probably set aside $500 for that, and you could probably hit a ton of grassroots with it. But mail drops for sure. Your carriers will do mail drops for you too, especially if you have events. I do a ton of social media stuff. I think everybody's aware of that, whether it's organic, and we also do paid stuff at this point now. So definitely, if you're into social media, if that's your jam, I would definitely look into that as well. But for sure, mail, social media, seminars, grassroots. But first and foremost, before you spend a dime, see if you have anybody that'll help you and make your 10,000 turn into 20. And that'll go farther for you.
I love that.
Hope that helps. It's 5:20. We're out of here. Happy Friday, y'all. Thank you, Christian. It's been a blast. It's always a blast with you. Love you.
Love you too.
I can't wait to read the book. Happy
Thanks,
Friday.
guys.